Hello, my beautiful and wonderful Laverne Bio 101 explorers. It's been a couple of years since I made one of these videos for the field trips that we're going to do, so I thought it was time to update it just a little bit. You are indeed lucky to live in a county like Kern County and in a town like Bakersfield with all of the natural resources that we have here. As I've said often on the news and in other places, Kern County is the most science potential county in the entire continental United States. Be glad you're here. We have found that the higher the per capita education in science, the higher the per capita quality of life in any community that you might find. So we have the potential to be the richest and most abundantly joyful community in the entire continental United States. Glad you're here. We're getting to do this thing called a field trip. We're getting to do the whole trip in one day. Wonderful opportunity to be able to do it this way. Usually we've had to break it up into two field trips on two different class sessions, use them as labs. I love that we're able to do it, coordinate it. There's one or two people may have to do it on their own, and so they should use this as a guide. We're going to meet at the east parking lot, just behind the university campus where we meet for our classes. We're going to meet at 2:30 on Saturday. 2:30 on Saturday. We should be done approximately 5:30. So it's going to be about a 3-hour deal. We're going to leave from that parking lot. Probably best to go out through Laverne. Well, it probably won't be as crowded as it has been when we're trying to do it at 5 o'clock in the evening. So we'll figure out a way from the parking lot how to get on the road. At that point, I will pass out permission slips for the field trip. I will pass out some brochures, some field guides, and some of the materials that we'll be using on the trip. First of all, we're going to head due east. We're going to go into the mouth of the canyon. It's going to be 22 miles for all of you that are carpooling. You'll be setting your mileage at the leaving of the parking lot. It'll be 22 miles before we get to Rich Bar. We're going to go straight to the farthest east location. It's going to be Upper Rich Bar. It's it's 22 miles there. It's 14 miles to the mouth of the canyon. We're not going to stop on the way in. We're going to stop on the way out. We're going to be looking at 3 different areas. We're going to be looking at Upper Rich Bar, the mouth of the canyon, and Hart Park. What we're looking at is we're trying to see between Montaigne and Lower Foothill. We're trying to see what kind of transitions there are in the biota of those 3 areas. Right at the mouth of the canyon, it's an abrupt and immediate adjustment between the Montaigne, which is going to be the Upper Rich Bar area, and the Lower Foothills, which is going to be the Hart Park area. We are blessed to have the Forest Service areas of Upper Rich Bar, to have a mouth of the canyon that has a wonderful history, and then to be able to have Hart Park, which is a wonderful resource. It looks like they're going to have to start charging parking fees to keep the place open. I will gladly pay $50 a year for a yearly access to that. If I have to take these field trips and I have to pay $5 a car for you guys to come into the park and park, I will gladly do that as well. It's really a wonderful facility. It's worth its time. It's worth its weight in gold to have in the community. It's one of the things that makes our community richer. What I'm going to do is okay, we're going to drive 22 miles. Once we hit the canyon mouth, you can check your speedometer, or your odometer, and then continue on for another 8 miles. There is going to be a paper in the discussion board in the weekly assignments that will show you pictures of the signposts and so forth, so that you'll know the places we see as we go in. First thing you'll see all of them are going to be on the left as we go into the mouth of the canyon, because the Kern River Canyon's road is on the south side of the river. So we're going to follow along on the south side of the river, the 8 miles to the Upper Rich Bar. The first thing you'll see off to the north or to your left is going to be the Live Oak Campground. It's a nice little campground, but it does not have as much area for us to be able to potentially explore. The next one you'll see is much smaller still. It may have a restroom on it. All you'll see to the side perhaps is that restroom. And that's the lower Rich Bar. Then we will continue on for about a mile from lower Rich Bar to upper Rich Bar. And you will see the road doubles out so that some people can pass and pull off to the side. We'll be turning left or north into the parking lot there. The parking lot goes left and right, and we'll park wherever it looks like there's space to park in there. We don't know how crowded it's going to be on a Saturday. Many people are going to be off, so it'll be much more crowded than it was before, but we'll have much more time to do something about it. Okay, so once we get to Upper Rich Bar, at every one of the assignments, I want you to be sure and consider three major things at each of our locations. First of all, you're going to be looking down at the river. We're going to go down close to the river. We're going to check out what the immediate river area looks like. Then we're going to see an intermediate area, the area between perhaps the road and the first 6 or 10 feet away from the river. We're going to be checking out that intermediate zone. And then I want you to look around at the trees. We're going to look at the montane, what sort of things you see up there. You need to be looking at each of those locations. You need to be looking at what the small stuff is on the ground, whether it's zoe or whether it's plant. You need to be considering which they are. Looking at what kind of roles they play in their different zones. And then we'll be able to do that down by the river. Look at what you see in the river, what you see adjacent to the river, what you see, and the little plateau-like area. It's called Rich Bar because it was a bar, and it shows the transition between when the river was a new river, became an old river, and began to meander and have back and forth sweeps, and then have build up, and then became, because of the tilt blocking, it became a new river again. And so the fresh river falls more directly, and it cuts through the flatness of the previous old river. And so there's been constant tilt blocking and uplifting. So the river has been young, then old, then young again. And right now it is in a young phase. And so we'll get to be able to see it. Rich Bar is the layer that's left from when it was an old river. There has been gold found in Rich Bar, and that's where it got its name. Okay, we're going to be looking there first. Then once we've done our charting, looking at the different things that we can spot, we'll take plenty of time to look it over, identify some things. I'll have some field guides on the different plants and the different animals. We'll be able to identify a lot of the plants, look at some of the Native American lifeways, products. In the previous video, for previous years, I talked about the blackberries. I sure hope they're there, but last time they were not. I hope to see some elderberry bushes. That would be very exciting. I have seen less and less of those over the years. I'm hoping that the fresh floods that have been able to wash out the duck pond-like effect that Rich Bar had become a year ago. A year ago, it was no different to go to Hart Park than it was to go to Upper Rich Bar, which was very sad for me. But most of my students have not had much experience with the outdoors, and so being out of doors and seeing the beautiful greenness and the coots and the different ducks that are there in the pond area that used to be a flowing river was still good for them. So it's better. Any wildlife is better than no wildlife. And so absolutely this should be fun for us in all sorts of ways. And there will be things that we'll be able to see that are neat and useful all the way through the entire field trip. Once we finished up there at Upper Rich Bar, we will go back out the 8 miles towards the mouth of the canyon, probably park off to the right or to the north side of the road. There is a little bit of space there. Should be enough for the 3 or 4 cars that we should be. I do have to make recommendations. As we go through the canyon, there are a lot of berserkos that want to go as fast as they can possibly go. They think it's a road race like the Coastal Highway 1. So we are going to be going in tandem, so what we'll probably want to do is when we see 2 to 3 cars backed up behind the last person pulls over, or maybe even the first person, depending upon the size of the turnout. And we will one by one let those cars get past us and so that we can progress on without having them totally panicked and trying to pass 3 and 4 of us at a time and have a head-on collision and all of the blah blah, whatever. Anyhow, more deaths in the Kern River happen because of anxious drivers than happen because of the ferocious Kern River. Okay, so once we're done there, we will get off at the mouth of the canyon, and you get to see the abrupt transition. As I've mentioned in other videos, we have this wonderful thing finished up in 1921, started in 1919. They made a hydraulic electrical power plant, and it's been in operation since 1921. It began construction in 1919, and it's been cranking out good electricity from the falling of the water in the Kern River for many years. Once we have taken a look around now, we won't be able to go right down to the river there. It's way too far down. But we should make some notices about what happens to the east of the mouth of the canyon as opposed to what happens to the west of the mouth of the canyon. Because that line is an abrupt line. It's a tilt block line between foothills and the mountains. And so it's very abrupt, and you'll see immediate reaction in the kinds of life that lives on that margin, that narrow margin. You could almost take a look at it from the sky and draw a line across it just by looking at the vegetation differences between the two sides, between the mountain that slopes up and the foothills that roll out. Do a couple of quick observations from there, maybe a couple of photos if you like. Look and see what you see towards the foothill side. Wildlife live, including animals, birds and mammals, of course. You will see a great deal of activity of raptors, I'm suspicious, because the uplift against the face of the mountain there gives them great uplift, and it gives them good flight time so that they can hunt prey. From there, we will go ahead and advance. We'll probably turn off of 178 onto Alfred Harold Highway, which would be the same way you'd go for COM or the soccer fields and so forth. We will go Alfred Harold Highway until it fuses into the east side of Hart Park. We'll proceed off to the right, approaching near the river. We'll go close to the opening, to the west opening of Hart Park, where we've got some real nice river areas we might be able to go look at and see some of the stuff that's typical in the Kern River. Plants and animals, stuff that lives under the rocks. We'll be able to get to see planaria, maybe some leeches. Definitely, I'm hoping we can show you guys some clams and show you clams boring and their natural behavior. It's really an exciting thing to see. Then we'll be able to see the plant life that grows right along the side of the Kern River, especially there in Hart Park. Has been very useful to Native Americans as they lived here in the valley and lived by the river. Definitely for Native Americans everywhere, but everything was useful. So a lot of education in the plants. We'll go up from the river and the swift water. We'll have 4 different regions there. We'll have the swift water. We'll have adjacent to the swift water. In other words, what's in the water, what's adjacent to the swift water, which is the moistened area that's right next to it, sort of like we had with the Upper Rich Bar area. Then we'll go up and we'll look at the flat area where most of the park is. And then we'll look at the still water and look at the differences between the life forms that we see in the still water and the life forms that we see in the swift water, because there will be different kinds of life forms, different kinds of fish, different kinds of plants, we might even be able to pull out do a little bit of work with the microscopes, especially since we'll have a 3-hour deal. So I'll be taking lots of equipment. Normally I would carpool and take an extra person with me. In this particular case, I'm fearful that the seats will be filled up with supplies for us to be able to use up there, and that's not a bad thing. That'll be a good thing because it'll be that much more for you guys. I've got some portable binoculars. I've got all kinds of references for. We've got nets, we've got little containers, and I'll be bringing the little hand scopes so that we'll be able to do even a little bit of microscope work. So we'll print up the forms. I'll have the forms printed up for you guys to do your notes, and you'll be submitting those in the week 9. Yes, you'll be submitting responses to your notes in the week 9 discussion board. It's going to be that. Your week 8 discussion board is going to be a little bit different this week. I want you to share your experiences with the great out of doors. How much have you had? How much do you typically get to do? Um, I have, in my advancing age, I've wanted to be able to spend more time out in the great out of doors, and I'm finding that with the things that I end up doing, I get to spend less. And so I'm doubly excited about this field trip because this is a good excuse for me to get back into the great outdoors, which has always been a great fun for me. The only outdoors I have now is out of my own home doors where I have the forest in my own yard. And I love to compare that with the natural outdoors. Anyhow, all that being said, I look forward to this field trip. We're going to meet Saturday, 2:30. Please be prompt. And I recommend headgear, bring water, snacks if you need it. Um, um, First aid kits would not be a bad idea if you've got a small little first aid kit in case you scratch yourself or something. I usually just lick the blood off and take care of it natural, but who knows? Duct tape in the trunk if I have to duct tape a wound closed. Emergency first aid. I will be wearing old tennis shoes that are virtually disposable. I don't worry about melting if I get wet. If you want to get into the water and you have waders you want to bring with you, you know, the little knee-high waders or thigh-high waders, fine, bring those. You may like to use those. I found most useful for tide pooling and for body surfing and for all of that to wear expired tennis shoes I wouldn't normally wear anymore. I put them on, and that way if they get wet, no problem. I can take them off and I can go barefoot in my car all the way home. Do what you want to be prepared. Bring what snacks you want. We'll go 2:30 to 5:30. Look forward to you guys. Let's have a great time. I'm going to enjoy myself. You guys are wonderful people. It's a great people to be able to share this with. See you there.